Zach, aka Zach's Reviews. We are back again with another video, and guys, we just got done watching Hawkeye. I'm loving this. This is gonna be the review for episode 1 and 2. Guys, there's so much to uncover, but all I have to say to start off this is that I love this series already. I knew Haley Steinfeld was gonna kill it as Kate Bishop. I'm getting the comic book vibes of Kate Bishop. I love it. I love how she's she's sassy. She cares about, other people. She cares about protecting people, and we see the struggle of her, and she gets back up, and she just has just all the elements from the comic book. I love that so much, and Haley just did an amazing job. I love this so much, and I love how in the first episode we get the big title card that says 2012, and right away I was like, oh my god, this is the Battle of New York. I'm like, this is around the time the Avengers of the Battle of New York. I'm like, oh my god, are we gonna see that? Is this how she wants to? Is this how she looks up to Hawkeye? Are we gonna see that moment? And then we see, of course, we see her as a little girl. She's listening in on her mom and her father, and they're having this conversation, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my god, what's going on here? Because I'm already trying to theorize things, and that's how I am. So when she was listening in, and of course the box drops, and she ends up she ends up pretending she's asleep, and her dad says, okay, I'm gonna go up and go talk to her. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, what's gonna happen? And he says, why don't you go downstairs and be with your mother? It's not nice to eavesdrop and stuff like that. So he's like, I'll be in my office. She ends up going into, going to her mother, and she, her mother's like, oh, I can be fun too. Ends up doing of course the whole fork, smacking the fork, and then fruit goes in the mouth and stuff, a little trick to make Kate laugh, and says, oh, get the checkerboard and all that stuff. Let's get crazy. And it's crazy because when she goes upstairs into her room, we see a shadow of a Chitauri on one of their ships, and I was like, oh my god, it's happening. And then we just start seeing the building get shot upon and stuff, and we see the big space worms and stuff. I'm like, oh my god, it's happening. I was right. This is the Battle of New York. And of course, there's she's screaming, for her mom and her dad, and no one's responding. I was like, that's very suspect. Where did her parents go? And there's a moment where there's a big hole chunk in the side of their apartment, penthouse, gone. And then we see the Chitauri ship about to go for Kate. But then we see Hawkeye, that moment where he's being overwhelmed, and he jumps off the building, does the turnaround, and then and then swings into the building. That's that same moment, and that's how she likes Hawkeye. That is how she realizes she wants to be a hero, and realizes that she wants to help people and protect people. And I love it when we finally see Kate's mother rush to her and says, oh my god, what are you doing here? Oh, get away from the window, this and that. And she's like, and at the funeral, they have a funeral for the father. I guess he ended up dying inside the penthouse when he was in his office, which again, I feel it's very weird. I feel like that's not how he died. I feel like in a way, I don't know, I feel like maybe the mom might have killed him off, because I did some research on the mom, what's her name? On Eleanor. I did some some research on Eleanor Bishop in the comics, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Which make me wonder, oh my god, maybe it was the father and her into something, and maybe they had an argument about something. There's just so many possibilities. I think they wanted to move, and I feel like there's a reason for that. So, after that moment, we see they're at the funeral for Kate's, father, and his name is Derek. So we're at Derek's funeral, and they're all like, oh, I'm sorry. And then, of course, Eleanor's like, oh, I'm always going to be here for you. If there's anything you need, let me know. And let's and you can do it. And she's like, I'm going to need a bow and arrow. And I'm like, oh, bro. I'm like, and then we see the evolution of her. She's done, martial arts. She's done gymnastics. She's done archery classes. And we see her growing up as a little girl through, the opening credits of the show, and I loved it. I'm like, that's such a perfect way without really having us see her do it. We're seeing her do it through the credit sequences of the show, and I was like, this is so perfect. The opening, I'm like, this is so awesome and perfect that we're not wasting time, but you're showing us, and it's enough where we see her get beat up. We see her go from like third place to second place to first place. We see her get back up, and it's just, it shows who she is as a character before we really get to know her character. But we see all that, and it's like we know her character from the opening credits and the opening of the show, and I'm like, this is so genius. I love this. And then we get into the show, and it's just, she is like in college. It's a bet that she has to hit the bell tower, like we all saw, and we were wondering why she was hitting the bell tower. The bell/clock tower, and I love it because, it was a bet, from the archery team. If I guess if she lost a bet or something, that she had to do that. And I love when she first gets the air out and it has the tennis ball, it doesn't work. But then it does work when she puts on a different, arrowhead, but it ends up spinning around the rope of the clock tower / bell tower, and ends up making it swing back and forth. And I guess to a point, it was so fragile, it like broke down, and she ends up getting like kicked out of college, and her friends start dipping, and the security guard finds her, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so like, she's so like cocky with it, and she's so like mischievous in a way. I'm like, I love this though. I love this because it's like, it's just so like awesome, her character, and I love her character so much. So I was like, this is so cool. I like it's such relatable that, if you have a skill like that, you're gonna want to show it off, and you call yourself like the world's greatest archer. I was like, that's so great. So she ends up getting kicked out of college. She ends up going home, and that's when we run into Jack Deucalion, which that was cool to run into him because he has a big storyline in the comics where it's like, it makes me wonder, so many different things are happening. It makes me wonder, okay, this fits into the plot a little bit, but they're like switching it around from the comic. I'm like, okay, I'm liking this because they did some research on him after the show was done, and I'm loving it. So we see Jack for the first time. He ends up like, there's swords everywhere, all over the apartment, or the penthouse, and of course Kate's asking, remodeling, and we see Jack there, and he pretty much moved in, and then of course she's like, you can, I already confiscated your credit cards. I already did all this stuff, so you can't be doing anything as a punishment for you, because you're rich, but you also, or whatever, so you need consequences or whatever. And I was like, okay, I like this. So I was like, okay, and she's like, you can make it up to me by coming to this, auction event or whatever. And I was like, okay. I'm like, this might be a chance at this auction, because we saw in the trailers when, we see the auction going down, and we see the big, hole that gets blown through the auction place. And it's very reminiscent of the comics where we see Kingpin there. And I'm like, oh my God, could Kingpin, Vincent D'Onofrio, make his appearance here? I'm like, okay, but I was like, it's too soon. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it'd be such a perfect place for him to show up. And it's like, it's underneath it's underneath this topside auction. There's like a more like, underground crime, auction going down in the basement of this, fancy auction upstairs. And I love that so much. It was like, that was so clever that they would, for the underworld, there would be like the more, criminal, like weird weapons down below. And I was like, okay, I like this. And, of course, Kate isn't, she's like, Eleanor says, go put on that red dress that's on your bed or whatever. And she doesn't put that on. Kate puts on a black, it's like, suit. I'm like, she looks fly, Haley. I'm like, I like this. This is so cool. And just, I just love the way she acts. And it's not like, I love it. It's like, she's not like just some normal, like, everyday girl. Like, there's something about her or whatever that's different and makes her stand out. And I really like that about the character. And it's just so sick to me. Like, she got her black belt at 15. I'm like, that is so sick. And she's 22, and it's like, we see like how much skilled she is by the clock tower, and her mom saying you got your black belt at 15, and she's 22, and she's already like knowing how to do these things. She already has a suit made for herself and all that. So it's all crazy cool things that she's always wanting to be a superhero, because ever since she looked up to Hawkeye on the Battle of New York. So I really do love that, how we see that, how it's like Hawkeye's really like is an inspiration to her. And we see, of course, what's going on with her going to the vent and finding out that there was stuff going on down below, because she feels very sus of the fact that she overhears Eleanor and Jack like talking to I guess a member of Jack's family. I guess like it's like an uncle or a cousin or something or whatever. Seeing that moment go down, and she like, of course, always said she wanted to protect her family. And that's when she goes down to the basement, finds like this underground, auction going down of like it's like black market arms auction underground. And she's like, oh my God, he's into some sus shit. And I was like, okay, this is really cool. But on the other side of things of Clint, and how he makes his appearance and what's going on with him after all those years since he's not been Ronan. And it's been crazy seeing the fact of he's trying to make up for lost time with his children in New York around Christmas time. And then, of course, we have to see Rogers the musical, or Captain America, I think it was Rogers the musical. And seeing that all go down, where it's like the Avengers, and it's like they're fighting the Chitauri, and they're having this musical number, like I Can Do This All Day. I'm pretty sure that was the name of the song. It was just freaking phenomenal. That's going to be on the playlist. People are going to rock it. Eventually, I can see this becoming like an attraction at Disneyland, Disneyland in California. Like, this will be the attraction they'll have in like the Avengers campus. I could totally see them doing this, or maybe this is just a Broadway thing they want to bring to real life, and this could be like a global thing where like this Broadway, show goes across the globe doing shows. Like, you could do so many things with this, and so many people are going to want to see this. I can see them making a full-on soundtrack for Rogers the musical. Like, there's so many things they could be doing with this, because I would love to hear more of the stuff from Rogers the musical, because we only heard one number. But I'm excited to see I'm excited to see more with that, if they decide to do something more with that. But I love how, like, Clint is totally not, like, he just doesn't care about it. He's like, oh my God, I've been there. I don't like this. I'm not the same person anymore. And at this point, he's deaf. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's like, he semi can't hear, so he has hearing aids in. At least in one ear, from what I can tell, is like there's only hearing aid in one ear, so he's deaf in one ear. So that was interesting to see that, and we really see him doing that because he turned off, I guess, his hearing aids, and that's why he was looking all like, what's happening, why? Because he just turned it off because he just didn't want to hear it. Even though I'm assuming he didn't want to go to that, his kids wanted to go to that, and I was like, okay, this makes sense. He's trying to make up for lost time. They're trying to do so many things in New York around the time of Christmas, before Christmas. I'm like, I like this a lot. This is cool. And the reason that he is away from Lila is he wants to spend time with the kids, because he didn't spend time with those kids ever since they blipped in those 5 years. And I guess this takes place 2 years later after the blip, so this takes place 2 years after. So it gives, Clint some time to, have Christmas with them. I guess this is their first Christmas together after what happened. So it's very interesting to see him wanted to have time with the kids and getting to see the kids after they blipped in, Avengers Endgame. So I really did appreciate seeing him with them, trying to, make these different plans. They go to a restaurant after, and they're trying to think of different, ways to, celebrate Christmas. They're like, okay, gingerbread house, that's 1. Ugly sweater wearing, that's 2. Oh, let's watch Christmas movies, that's 3. And while all this is going on, Kate ends up finding the Ronan costume in that the black market, auction down below. And they're also giving Ronan's sword away and keys to the Avengers compound. So there's so many things that were found at the Avengers compound that got onto the black market to get released in this auction. And we see Jack and we see Jack's other relative trying to bid for the sword, but no one's really trying to bid, and no one's really interested in the keys of the compound or the costume. And I'm thinking, okay, what is the deal? I'm shocked Jack wanted the sword, and also so did his relative, but no one wanted the costume and the keys to the compound. And this all goes to Jack's Jack Deucalion's origin story. So that's going to be interesting, because there's a comic issue where he wants to pretend to be a hero to get into the Avengers compound and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, okay, this could maybe be a take on that, but he just wants the sword, because we end up finding out when we saw the swords, he's a sword collector. So I guess he just wants to collect swords. They could just go with that too. But he's clearly experienced with swords that we see later in the second episode. He has experience with swords. So he wants, so at this point, I'm just gathering, okay, he probably just wants to collect a sword because he's a sword collector. I'm just wondering, who is the villain so far? Who is the head honcho? I feel like that, Kate's mom, Eleanor could be Madame Mask. I feel like that is a chance she could be. And I feel like, we see Jack Deucalion and he plays swordsman in the comic books too. So I'm thinking could swordsman be involved trying to do something like, he wanted to infiltrate the Avengers team so he could get easy access to like the crime syndicate and all that stuff. I'm thinking, could that be a possibility? That's what he's trying to do. Also, because we end up finding out, they wanted keys to the Avengers compound, the tracksuit Draculas, when they ended up breaking into that, underground auctioning. So it's like, that makes sense. What do they want the keys for? Do they want to find the technology for all this Stark tech and all the Avengers tech? Because that's been the forefront of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is that every villain always wants Stark tech. And since the Avengers compound, we end up finding out, has been sold, Tony sold it 2 years ago, I guess Pepper at that point, because it wouldn't make sense, because again, Natasha was still in there in those years, she was still living in there. I don't know. It's like maybe Pepper sold it, and maybe this is all the remnants. Maybe like people snuck in and, in the cleanup crew, and actually, because we saw that in Homecoming, we saw this cleaning crew grab all this tech and then ended up using it for bad. So it's like, who's to say the people that came in there didn't, take all that tech and tried to give it to the black market? Hence, Ronan's costume, his sword, and everything else, and the keys to the compound. So it's like, there's so many possibilities going on with what's going on, because, if Eleanor is Madame Mask, in the comic book, she's connected to the West Coast, I forget, I forget, it's like, what is it, Bethany? What? The West Coast what? Yeah, the West Coast Masters of Evil. So, like, who's to say she's not connected with that? And who's to say that, Derek, Kate Bishop's actual father wasn't connected with that? And maybe that was the argument they had in the beginning of whatever. And maybe who's to say in that moment when, Kate's running around saying, Mom, Dad, maybe who's to say in that argument, maybe, Derek wanted to leave the Masters of Evil. You know what I mean? Like, who's to say that he wanted to leave and wanted to move away? Or like maybe, he wanted to, and maybe, Eleanor wasn't okay with that and then killed Derek. Who's to say she didn't kill him? I don't know. There's so many possibilities that maybe it wasn't the Battle of New York that killed him when their penthouse, crumbled. Maybe it was Kate, Eleanor that killed him. Who knows? There's so many possibilities what could go down, and there's different variations they could do from what the comics give us. So who knows? There's just so many crazy things. So, he ends up finding out by the time he's done at the restaurant, Clint, that of course Ronan is back in the costume, because, Kate ends up, getting the costume, fighting the tracksuit Draculas, gets the costume, gets out of there, ends up running into Lucky the pizza dog when Lucky grabs the keys, I think, from the Avengers compound, ends up running off. And then ends up, getting into the street. She ends up saving Lucky the pizza dog, and ends up taking, Lucky back to her apartment building, and ends up going out looking for more information on, on Jack and his relative, looking out for more information why they were at that, underground, auctioning. So she ends up going into the house, ends up finding his body, Jack's, relative. And it ends up leaving the place and ends up running into the tracksuit Draculas again. And at this point, Clint finds out about Ronan saving, the dog and being at that, that shootout that went down at that auction, and ends up I think there was a tracker on the suit, and that's how he's able to find the person that is, acting like Ronan. And he wants to find the person and stop them, because Ronan has a lot of bad, rep in the crime world of taking down crime bosses and, and crime syndicates. So there's just a lot of danger when you wear that costume, and he wants to find the person that's wearing the costume. And then that's how he runs into Kate when Kate is, gets ambushed by the tracksuit Draculas again, and ends up fighting them and getting beat and all that stuff. She's way over her head, but of course she isn't going to admit that, because, she is, slightly trained from all the years she's been training in, martial arts and training in archery and training in gymnastics. Like, she can semi hold her own, but she has a lot to learn from Hawkeye, and hence this is what the series is going to be of her, training. From what we can see is that, he's teaching her things here and there about cleaning wounds and to, make sure that no one follows you, because as we all know, when he finds her and then they go back to her apartment in the second building, in the second episode, she gets, he's like, are you sure you weren't, tracked here? Like, are you sure you weren't followed? And it's crazy is because, she's like, I didn't go anywhere else except I had to drop off the dog here. Meaning that, she went, drop off the dog there, went to the place, and she got ambushed. So people knew right away where she would go, because they followed her to that place. So, and it's funny because, as, we see the Molotov go through, and he's like, are you sure you weren't followed, huh? And then he's like, oh, like, I hope they don't know who you are. And they said, we know who you are, Kate Bishop. And she's like, oh, I have Kate Bishop on the doorknob, on the doorbell. I was like, oh God. I was like, Jesus. I was like, that's so funny. So right now, literally, Clint has to be with Kate Bishop to protect her from the Tracksuit Draculas, from everybody else that might know, who she is, pretending to be being Ronan. Because for all we know, they can think Kate's been Ronan all this time, for all we know. And that's what's scary, is because no one knows at this point that Clint Barton was Ronan. So that's what makes me feel like, okay, you're bringing up a person that has been gone for forever in those 5 years, has been gone for 2 years now, because when everybody comes back, this takes place 2 years after. So Ronan's been gone for 2 years, which is very scary. The fact that people might think that, when the tracksuits think now the Ronan that's been gone and Ronan that's been there all this time has been Kate Bishop. So it's like, how do you, Clint's trying to find out a way to get everybody to think that Kate Bishop is not Ronan and that he might be Ronan, or he might know somebody else that is Ronan. So that's excited to see. I was excited to see how he was going to trick everybody into thinking, okay, leave this girl alone. She has nothing to do with these things. I'm Ronan, or somebody else is Ronan. And we see a lot of homages to, Natasha. We see the person playing Natasha on the Rogers, on the Rogers, the musical, stage. And, he is looking at her and he's reminiscing how he feels guilty that, she died. And we see a person in the audience, dressed up as Black Widow, and he feels guilty and sad that he's turned into a monster, and that, Natasha didn't get to live her life and all that. So he just feels a whole bunch of guilt, and he knows he's not the same person, the same hero that everybody's looking up to, that they're showing on stage. He's not that same person anymore. So he just feels a lot of guilt, and just, he wanted to leave that character Ronan behind, that, the other side of him. He wanted to leave that behind. So since it's back now, it's bringing a lot of issues, and he's afraid that some things could get connected to him. People might find out now who he is, since he's trying to make it so people don't think it's Kate Bishop now, because now the tracksuits know it's her. They're the only ones that really know it's her so far. But I think, as we end up finding out in the next episode, is that the head honcho of the Tracksuit Draculas is Echo. And that's going to be interesting, because I think, as we all know from the comics, Echo is the adoptive daughter of, Kingpin, Wilson Fisk. So it's going to be interesting to see. There's been rumors that Vincent D'Onofrio is going to be in this series at some point, along with Yelena Belova. And we have so many things going on where it's like Yelena is going to be after Clint Barton, and essentially, guess who's with Clint Barton? Kate Bishop. He's going to be training her and trying to help her, prevent people from killing her and all that stuff, and prevent people from, and try to stop people and try to make it so people don't know that she was Ronan, and try to get her to safety and just make it all go away. Well, he's going to be getting tracked and trying to get assassinated by Yelena, and of course, the Tracksuit Draculas are going after them because they think Kate Bishop is Ronan, and now Echo is going after Clint and Kate Bishop, because again, I guess they wanted the Ronan. I guess what I'm assuming is that there makes no sense why Echo would just want Ronan. I'm assuming that Kingpin wants Ronan, but Kingpin put his adopted daughter Echo to be in charge of the Tracksuit Draculas, so they wouldn't mess up on getting Ronan, because they now know Ronan is back. And I'm thinking, when Ronan was killing all people in those 5 years, he was killing people that was a part of that Wilson Fisk was doing workings with. And I think also this is also connected to this might be connected to Valentina. Maybe Valentina is working with Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin, and maybe that since Valentina knew that Hawkeye was Ronan, and I feel like again, Clint ruined things with Valentina's organization in those years, and maybe she's angry and says, "Oh, I have a wild card right now, wanting revenge for Natasha'S death. Let me send, let's have Yelena do my bidding for me. Let's have her just a wild card." And not caring for answers, and I'm pointing a wild card at somebody saying, "Oh, Clint Barton killed, your sister Natasha. Go after him to, take out her problem with Ronan, for doing, messing up her dealings in the past in those 5 years." So I was like, okay, that could be a possibility. And also maybe he's ruined things with, again, Kingpin, and maybe he wants revenge since Ronan's back, sending out Echo, to be in charge of the tracksuit Draculas to go find, Ronan, aka Kate Bishop, since they think Kate Bishop is now Ronan. But he was trying to do what Natasha's famous move was it was like I forget what it's called. It's called I forget the Beth. What's the move Natasha had? Beth. Okay, I don't know. She's upstairs. But it was like it was like pretending she gets captured and then getting out of it and getting answers and stuff like that. So I really appreciated how it was an homage to Natasha from Avengers 1, where she's getting captured and then she is getting the answer she wants and getting the bad guy by getting captured. So that's exactly what Clint was doing. Trying to be like, yo guys, Kate Bishop's not the person you want, she's not Ronan. I'm Hawkeye, but Kate Bishop's not the one you want, is Ronan. And he's like, I've seen her as Ronan. I know she's Ronan. And he's like, oh, like, you're telling me you're not Hawkeye when we know you're Hawkeye? And I'm like, come on, bro. I love how the tracksuit Draculas literally act like the way they acted in the comic books. They're like, oh, bro, come on, bro. You know what I mean? Don't trick us, bro. I love that. It was so funny to me how the way they were acting, the tracksuit Draculas, they made me laugh so much. When they capture, Clint wanted to get captured. And then we see, of course, Kate come through the ceiling because they're asking, where's Kate Bishop? Where's the Ronan? And he's like, she's not the Ronan, and I don't know who Kate Bishop is. And she ends up crashing through the ceiling and says, she's like, I didn't know we had to bring guns. And of course, they end up taping, Kate and Clint to these, tapes Clint to a horsey, a kid's horsey, electronic horsey that you would see at like an arcade or something. And then Kate's on this rocket, and I love how they're taping up Clint, and he's like, oh, at least you won't fall off. I was like, that was funny. He's like, at least you won't fall off, bro. I was like, that's great. I love the comedic elements along with the action, along with the ground level. It makes me feel like this is such a perfect opportunity to bring in Daredevil, and this makes me feel like Charlie Cox Daredevil is eventually coming. They are making it so ground level where it's like you're setting up the ground level for Charlie Cox's arrival as Daredevil. You're setting up the tone, you're setting up the environment where it would make sense for him to be there. So I love how this series is setting up so many of the ground level characters, I forget on the top of my head, She-Hulk and Kamala Khan, and there's Jennifer Walters, She-Hulk. So they're setting up Jennifer Walters, ground level stuff as She-Hulk. They're setting up, Kamala Khan as Miss Marvel. They're setting up so many of the ground level things, and I'm loving it. And setting up, of course, for Matt Murdock to make his appearance, so that way he can be Daredevil in the crime organization, fighting the crime organization on the ground level things. They're setting up the ground level heroes and villains, and I'm loving it so much. It's like this is so perfect. I'm loving it. If it has any bit of the tone of the ground level here, but of course it'll be a little bit darker when they do the Daredevil stuff, but I feel like this is going to be so fun, so cool. I'm excited to see where the rest of this series goes because I'm loving this series. I really think this is going to be my favorite series of all the Marvel TV series that they've had. I think this might, of all the Disney Plus shows of Marvel, I think this might be my favorite. I'm going to probably put this one, then probably then Loki, then Falcon and the Winter Soldier, then WandaVision. I think that's how I'm going to be putting it. I just love this show so much. I fell in love with it right from the first episode. I'm loving what they're doing. Everything makes sense because there was a moment where, we see Kate in the first episode, she's trying to track, she's tracking people's locations. I'm like, how is she doing that? My sister asked that. And I kept thinking to myself, how is she doing that? I was like, oh my God, she works, her mother owns, Bishop, it's like Bishop, it's like a Bishop security or whatever, for security and all that stuff with security protocols and tracking and everything. I was like, that's how she's doing it. I'm like, that's so clever. She's using her mom's technology and stuff from the security stuff that they manufacture to track down all this stuff going down. I'm like, that's so perfect to pinpoint people's phones and stuff and ping them. I'm like, she would of course have access to that because her mother has access to that. I was like, that's so baller. They just explained that they didn't leave anything anything undone without a tether. It just works so well, guys. I love this series. I love Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop. I'm loving the dynamics between her and Clint. And the moment where Clint, he's trying to get the Ronin costume, And like he has to go LARPing to get the costume, because we find out a LARPer takes the costume out of Kate's apartment when it gets burned down. I loved that so much how he had to like fight for it, how he had to take down the ninja wearing the costume to get back his costume. He's like, I'll give you the costume. I don't care. I just gotta take you down first. Like, you know what I mean? I'll have good rep here that I took down a superhero, and this is my chance to be a superhero. So just let me take you down. Let me, take you out of the game, and then I'll give you the costume. And I just love that. He's like, this was the best day I've ever had, because I got to meet you, and I got to take down an Avenger. And he's like, he's like, you're telling me this wasn't fun for you, bro? And he's like, yeah, it was fun. I don't regret not doing it or whatever. It was just funny seeing Clint make friends that we'll probably see come back. I have a feeling we'll probably see that guy come back, and maybe he'll do a favor for Clint and stuff like that. I'm already seeing like people, like, him making some allies throughout this journey of him, not having any friends in this to protect Kate, and they're on the run, and like from everybody trying to kill them, like the tracksuits and everybody, and they're trying to stay low key, and they're trying to like figure out what's happening with the organizations, with Jack and like, and Eleanor and everything to do with all their shady stuff, because I feel like Eleanor's into some shady stuff. If she is going to be playing the portrayal of Madame Mask, which we don't know yet, she had stuff to do with, of course, with the organization of the West Coast and all that stuff. So, with the West Coast Masters of Evil. So if she is Madame Mask, she has the connection to them, and I'm thinking maybe that is what was going on at the time of the fight that she had with, Derek, Kate Bishop's actual father. So it's interesting to see all that go down, and maybe did she kill him? Did she not kill him? Was it actually the Battle of New York? Is she Madame Mask, and did she have an involvement with the Masters of Evil? Like, it should be interesting to see how this all go down, because again, we all know, Jack Deucalion has stuff to do with of course, him as swordsman. So that's already a confirmation that he collects swords. He's Jack Deucalion. He is swordsman. It should be very interesting to see this all go down going forward. It's going to be interesting to see Echo actually use her powers and abilities in the next episode. And it's going to be interesting to see why she's in charge of the Tracksuit Draculas. And it's going to be interesting if we're going to see Vincent D'Onofrio at some point. I think it's going to happen probably in episode 5 or 6. Mainly probably 5. I feel like that's when... I think 5 is when Yelena's going to come in, and I feel like 6 is when we're going to see maybe Kingpin. I don't know, anything can happen, but I know they're going to be in this. I have a big feeling that if Echo's in this, Kingpin's in this, Vincent D'Onofrio. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen, what's going to go down. I'm loving this series. I'm loving the groundedness. I'm loving the action. I'm loving the comedy. I'm loving how they're setting up, again, the heroes and villains of the ground level to set up Daredevil and to set up Kingpin and set up all like the ground level heroes and villains, because we need that side. We need a break from all the crazy big spectacle. We want to see the ground level shit. That's what people love. That's why people fell in love with Daredevil, is because it's the ground level nitty gritty, hand-to-hand combat. And it's like, it's real. It's realistic. It's cool. I mean, it's not to say that, it's not realistic and cool when the big things happen, it's not cool, and it feels realistic because they've set up the universe so well. But it's like, it's good to take a break and get down to the ground level side of things, besides from the big spectacle all the time. And I really do appreciate the ground level stuff, because I'm really excited for when they bring Charlie Cox Daredevil into No Way Home, because he's going to be Matt Murdock in No Way Home. And then, of course, in the Echo series, he could make his appearance officially as Daredevil. We might see him in his new costume. I don't know. I hope he gets a series. Hell, I hope he gets a movie. That would be cool. I would actually love a series more than a movie with him, because I feel like I would just want that more with him, because they would take more time giving us more with, Charlie Cox's, Matt Murdock and Daredevil. So I would just appreciate more of a series more than a movie. But guys, I loved this series. I can't believe it was so... I just want to say thank you to Disney Plus for giving us the first 2 episodes. I that's amazing. I'm really happy you guys have been doing this. And I can't wait for next week's episode 3 of Hawkeye. I'm super, super excited. Again, I can't wait to hear down in the comments below what you guys thought of the first 2 episodes of Hawkeye. Tell me down in the comments below, do you guys like it? Do you guys hate it? Do you guys like the ground levelness? Let me know your theories and your speculations going forward in the series. Who do you think we're going to see? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen going forward even after the show? I feel like this is going to definitely be leading, in the comics we see, Clint and Kate Bishop, they make the team, they start the team for the Young Avengers. So it's going to be interesting to see all that go down. I'm really interested to see what's going to happen with that. And I'm also excited to see if, Eleanor has a connection to Blade. So I'm interested to see, oh my god, are they going to go with this? Because in the comics, she actually ends up being a vampire. And I don't know if they're going to go that route here or not, because in the comics, she ends up being a vampire, and she ends up being a daywalker. Like how Blade's a daywalker, how he's like half vampire, half not. So it's going to be interesting to see what is going to happen. Is she a vampire? I don't know. Is she going to be a vampire maybe later down the line? I don't know. But she has a connection to Blade in the comics, and I feel like it's not a coincidence. We got Blade, mentioned at the end of Eternals, and just it's just all craziness. I'm loving what they're doing. I'm here for it. I think this is the best show on Disney Plus right now out of all the Marvel shows. This is definitely number one, in my personal opinion. I want to know what your favorite, would you guys consider this your favorite already? And let me know, what is your favorite Disney Plus Marvel series show? But guys, that was the video. Again, if you're new to the channel, subscribe to the channel, put those notifications, like this video. I would love to have you guys here, part of this family on this channel, while about spreading love, positivity, and motivation. And literally, guys, we are almost to 500 subs. Right now, we're at 420, on our way for hitting 500 subs. That is my goal, to get to 500, guys. My initial goal is to get to, 1,000, and I know we're going to get there. This family's growing each and every day, and I love it so much. I love you guys so much. All you guys do is spread love, positivity, and motivation down in the comments below. And you guys motivate me each and every day to strive for greatness here on this channel. But guys, that was the video. I hope everybody has a great day, a safe day. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.